Well, it's Friday, the 19th of June. What a weekend we have ahead. Saturday is the summer solstice and the 21st is the solar eclipse, and almost everything is in retrograde. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, with Neptune due on Monday. If you have a tin helmet or even a tinfoil hat, I'd strap it on. This is episode 2024 of 301 Permanently Moved to Online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded and edited in 1 hour by me at the JMO. On January the 2nd of this year, everyone's favourite man-astrologer, Austin Coppock, wrote his year ahead. He called 2020 the year of the bridge. I bring this up as we have some terrible space weather directly ahead. I've also just finished listening to Austin Coppock's half-yearly appearance on Gordon White's Rune Soup to speak about the second half of 2020, so it's front of mind as I sit down to write today's script. I suppose it's important to just say that we are where we are. We are alive at the ending of empires. This year sees the ending of the Jupiter-Saturn cycle. Since 1802, Jupiter and Saturn have conjoined every 20 years in an Earth sign, but from December onwards they will begin a new cycle in Aquarius. Air. The last 200 years have been absolutely dominated by earthly pursuits. Empires, wars, resources, coal, oil, territory, maps, borders, industry, farming and topsoil. So we really are at the end of an era. But it's important to remember that when the colour on the tip of the brush of history changes, the water that the brush gets cleaned in remains dirty and cloudy, full of pigment and shade from the previous flavour. Aquarius is associated with many things: electricity, computers, flight, inclusiveness, but also nonconformity, freedom, idealism, modernization, astrology, nervous disorders, rebellion, philanthropy, veracity, perseverance, humanity, and irresolution. Air. Zooming into the rest of the year, we are still under the influence of Jupiter in Capricorn. In December last year, I said that all big dreams and plans that Jupiter in Sagittarius laid in 2019 would have to be executed now with graft and effort. A heroic trial. A fitting description for 2020 if you ask me. Jupiter's time in Capricorn also ends one day away from the end of the wider Earth cycle. Again, there's no change like a light going on in a dark room, but instead it will be like a multi-month or multi-year long dawn. Fortunately, we already had a preview of what 2021 to 23 looks like with that short period in Saturn in Aquarius earlier this year, so the future looks very much like Q2, and we all know how that went down. Speaking of Saturn, this September brings us the worst weather of 2020. So hold on to your hats this summer. It's going to be long and hot. There's a storm brewing. Avoid unnecessary conflict. Now with that extended forecast out the way, my word count tells me that I'm only halfway through the episode. Just like we are halfway through the year, I suppose. That's called a segue. Midsummer. So many influences we could talk about. It's the most romantic day of the year, a day that romantic souls can define their future loves. A Cornish tradition holds that if a woman, blindfolded, plucks a full-blown rose on Midsummer's Day while the chimes are playing 12, folds the rose up in a sheet of white paper and does not take out the rose until Christmas Day, it will be found fresh as when gathered. Then, if she places the rose on her bosom, the young man who she would be married to will come and snatch it away. Meanwhile, in Somerset, on the night of Midsummer's Eve, a girl must go through a churchyard and wait for the stroke of 12. She must have rose leaves and a herb such as rosemary in her hand. At the first stroke of midnight, she must start to run around the church, scattering the leaves and singing softly. Rose leaves, rose leaves, rose leaves I strew. He that will love me, come after me now. All my reference books on flowers, herbs and their histories are packed with love potions at this time of year. Edible orpine with its freshly bluish-green leaves is supposedly at its best in midsummer. For 1 week only, the leaves apparently have a sharp tartness at this time of year. But I'm not from Cumbria, so I've never eaten midsummer's man. Lastly, midsummer, of course, is a time for fairies. My nana used to say that they lived in the pansies out of her back door, flowers that bloom in spring and autumn. So in summer, I presume that they are abroad. She told me that she put salt outside the door to keep them away. Happy to have them hanging about, just not so welcome to come inside. And I wonder, as more and more people emerge out of lockdown and are re-engaging with the world around them, perhaps this summer we could all try and walk around our local areas with fresh minds and bodies. Every place, everywhere makes you feel something. so you just need to find the places that make you feel the most.